What's up, guys? Welcome back. This is part number 2. So if you guys have not seen part number 1, go back and watch that. In part number 1, basically all we did is we got the new motor in, the 5,000 watt hub motor. I wanted to see if the dropouts were correct. So we ordered 170 to 175 millimeter dropouts. It worked, it fit. The axles were 10 millimeter. They fit right into the location of the stock frame on the REV1. So we're all good on that. So that's what we did in part 1. Part number 2 is gonna be drilling and modifying the spacers and washers, whatever you have to do to get the motor to actually bolt into the frame. Once we get it bolted into the frame, I want to take the brake rotor off of the old stock wheel, and then we also need to swap out the tubes and the tires, and then we can flip the bike upside down and actually have it sitting as a roller before we actually get into the electronics. So that's what we're going to do in part number 2. So come along with the journey and I'll show you exactly what to do. Now, I did a little bit of work in between part 1 and part 2 off to the side overnight. I was up till 3 in the morning working on it. So that's why the bike is sitting like this. I would suggest putting your bike upside down to do this. It's a lot easier than putting it on a stand. If you didn't see part 1, mine obviously fell off the stand and it was not fun. A little bit of stuff got scraped, but it wasn't too bad. So what I did off camera was I did take the center section out right here. I disconnected the rear motor wires and all that stuff from the controller. So that's sitting over here, and we're gonna have to take that rotor that's sitting on there off. We're gonna transfer it over to this side right here. And then I started dremeling some parts. Now, I got this side perfectly set. Hopefully anyways, we won't find out until we actually do some testing once we have the battery and everything. But what I want to do is I only did this side. I haven't done the other side. So I'm going to show you this side, and then I want to show you the other side, and I want to show you the difference on why I had to modify this to fit in here. All right, so I got everything removed on this side, and basically what I did is I took the stock washers that came on this 5,000 watt kit, and obviously they're more completely circled than this. I used my Dremel and I basically cut it up. Now, this isn't perfect. There's no CNC machinery here, so it's just kind of ghetto. This is like a do-it-yourself in your garage type of thing. So I had to cut this up because I had to get it to fit in here because the e-bike is recessed in and it wouldn't allow the washer to go sit flat. So it's very tight. I didn't cut a lot, so it is very like snug in there. After I put this in here, I then get my torque plate. We're gonna install this a different way, by the way. But I put this on just like that. This will slide all the way on. And then I just get my nut, put the nut right on here. And that's pretty much it. You're good to go. Now, I am going to change this arm. I'm gonna put it probably this way right here. I'm gonna have to flip it around because I need this part on this side. So I'll flip it around here, and then I'll put like a clamp around here, maybe some tape or some rubber so I don't mess up the frame. And this should hold it down from the torque that it's gonna give the bike to kind of hold it onto the frame so it doesn't mess up this dropout right down here. But that's pretty much what I had to do. It's pretty simple. It took me a few minutes to do at 3 in the morning working on it. Now I basically just have to do the same thing to the other side. And here is the other side. So if you want to get an idea of how the washer looked before we cut it up and everything, so that's basically how it's going to look. Very simple to do. I would just suggest putting it on here. I'll bring the camera in here really quick to show you. So you're going to notice right up close to it, it just doesn't slide on. It's hitting the frame. So I got a marker and I kind of marked it like right here. Gonna have to mark it right on this corner right here. And then once we do that, it should fit in there. All right, so I grinded a little bit. My suggestion would be do a little bit at a time because obviously you don't want to cut too much off. You can get these on Amazon for like 11 bucks for a package. I actually did order a second set just in case I messed this up. And basically just start test fitting it. So obviously mine's going in. It looks like this is okay. Maybe I can cut a little bit more, but I have to now work on this little side. So like I said, just keep doing it little by little. Do not rush this process and make sure you get it right so it's really tight when it sits in there. All right, so I finished mine and this is how my washer looks. Now it is a little hard to get off there half the time because once you smash it down, it's pretty much in there. So put this all the way in and then you're gonna wanna come and grab your torque plate, which is this thing, should come in the package when you order the motor. And you're gonna wanna put this on as well. Once you put that on, if the camera will focus and you'll be able to see that, and you'll just set that right on there, and then you're gonna get your big old nut, which is right here, and tighten this down. and tighten it as tight as you can. The nut is gonna rest up a little bit on this frame right here. You can Dremel out the frame a little bit on this side if you want, which I can show you really quick. So if you guys can see that little section right there, that little nick, that's where the torque plate is sitting at. So you can Dremel that out a little bit if you really want. I don't think it's gonna cause any issues. Well, hopefully not. We won't find out until we actually ride it. But if you wanna be on the safe side, you can cut that, but then again, you're cutting into the frame a little bit. So I would probably just stick with messing with the washers and cutting those down. But so far so good. So I think we're on our way to taking the motor off, so now we can swap out the rotor and see if it fits on here. All right, so I'm moving over here to the carpet because I do not want to scratch this rim because we do not have a tire on it yet. So basically all I have to do, take off all these bolts to this rotor right here. There's 6 of them. And then we just have to transfer it over to here. So we have the same exact 6 bolts right there. The easiest way to do it is this does have to go through the wire loom. So once you take this off, you have to, you know, put it all the way and go through that. It is gonna be a little harder for this because these motor wires are bigger. So I'm gonna have to unwrap that and then basically just fish the brake rotor all the way down into there. I'm hoping that they're the same. It should be though. And then after we do that, then we'll get the tire and tube switched over to it as well. Now, if you guys want to know the tool that you need to take this off, you're going to need a T25 Torx bit for this side. And for the 5,000 watt hub motor, you're going to need a T20. So they are different, but you're going to need a T20, T25 to remove both of them. All right, so we officially moved over the rotor to the new wheel. I did take the spacer that was off after you take those Torx bits out. I don't know if we need that or not. We won't find out until we put it back in there and align the brake rotor up with the brake caliper. So we'll just see how that works. But for now, that's good. Now let's take off this tire and tube and switch over to here. Don't forget, while doing this, you are going to need a rim liner on the inside. I got this one from Super 73. Unfortunately, it doesn't reach all the way over because I did have to put a little piece of electrical tape and another thing right there to cover the gap up. But it works for me. But just keep in mind, you are going to need some type of tire liner on the inside before you do the swap because the new motor does not come with anything. All right, so we got the tire on now, and this is a very, very heavy wheel right now to install. I will say that when you are installing this, you do need to keep these washers. There's one on this side and there's one on the other side. This frame is a little tight. It would help if you have a second person, but you need to push these out as much as possible, kind of like bend them out just ever so slightly so the motor will drop in. And trying to get them while the washers are moving around side to side is a little difficult. So give me a second. We'll get this wheel on there, we'll bolt it up, and then we'll flip the bike upside down. We're actually right way up, and then we'll see how it looks. All right, so remember that spacer I told you guys about for the rotor? We're definitely gonna need that. So if you guys can see that, see how bent that rotor is down in there? It's definitely angled in there. So we're gonna have to take this off, put that spacer on. So at least now you know we need this spacer right here on the ground. So do not take that off when you put your rotor on. Okay, now the wheel is in. We put that spacer back on. Lots of work. Please smash a like for this video, guys. So I will say that the rotor is still ever so slightly at an angle, but I think it should be okay now. You could probably put a little bit more of a spacer behind it, but I think I'm just gonna leave it for the time being. If we do ever come across one of those other pieces for the spacer, I can order on Amazon and like double them up. But for now, it should be okay. It spins pretty good. It is rubbing against the brakes a little bit, but we do have a little bit of adjustability in the brake rotor down there, so we can loosen those Allens up and then slide it kind of over to the side a little bit. So anyways, now let's get the axle nuts on, torque plates. I won't install the actual clamps of the torque plates because I don't have anything to put on the frame yet, so I don't scratch it. So basically, let's just get it flipped over and, you know, let's see how it looks. All right, guys, and this is with the motor installed in the rear. Now, there is still a little bit of work to do in the back, but at least it's flipped over. It has a tire on it, has a tube on it. It's ready to ride if we were able to hook it up. Now, if we come down here, you're gonna see how our motor cable is gonna run. I'm probably gonna run it right here, zip tie it to a peg. I'm not gonna put pegs on this bike. You could zip tie it underneath and go this way, but I don't want it to be close to the rotor, so just be careful with that. I would run it on the outside of this. Just make sure it's above this, but below your torque plate. because we're gonna put a little clamp right here that's gonna hold on to here. It's gonna be difficult on this side just because you have your kickstand bracket behind here, so there's a big old like hefty piece right here. So I'm not sure if we're gonna even be able to put a torque plate on this side to clamp it on here. The other side works pretty good. We shouldn't have a problem with that. We'll clamp it onto the bottom right here, and we'll just go right up here. I like the fact that this is as far as it goes, so this will not hit the frame or damage it if it moves in whatever way. We also did take the chain off, if you guys noticed, just because the chain was in the way and it was a big pain in the ass. The chain is also gonna be off center. You guys probably cannot tell by looking at this angle, but it is definitely way off. So the factory was, this was over on this side and this was on this side. I don't know if you can take the one from the stock motor off, I'm not sure. So anyway, the chain is basically like this. So it's gonna be coming off the front and it's gonna be like angled like this. So I don't know how a chain's gonna sit on there. Hopefully it doesn't jump teeth and come off. But I'll say I'm not gonna be pedaling anyway, it's just gonna be there for legal reasons. So you are gonna notice we did take off the dual battery setup. I mentioned that from part 1 to part 2, that's kind of what I did on my off time. And all we have to do is basically put this cover back on. Without the motor connected, real quick, I'll show you that we still have the original battery hooked up. The lights and everything come on. It does give you a 0.8 error because the motor is not connected. But it looks like we're still gonna have our lights. It looks like our turn signals work as well. So hopefully we can use the stock battery for all that stuff. So the next thing that I need to do is I need to find a company to make a battery. We're probably gonna go through Powerful Lithium to put a battery on here. But the problem with that is I need to show you guys the cage that we're gonna use for the battery and the controller. I already have the controller mocked up, but real quick, I wanna see how the controller is going to sit in there if the bolts are going to come in contact with the top of the frame, because it sits very tight on one side. The front is a little bit, I think, down and the back's kind of high. So let's test fit that really quick. All right, so here's the center storage cage. That's what RIDE1UP calls this thing. And this is where I'm thinking about putting the controller. So you're gonna see my concern probably right off the bat, but if it's not known to you, this basket sits very high, like up here, so I'm worried about stuff hitting the very top of this, if you guys can see, because the camera doesn't like to focus sometimes. I'm worried about these touching the top. So these are very loose right here. If I have to, I'll get something more low profile, but here's the thing, think about this. The battery is gonna have to go in first. And once we get the battery in, then we can mock this up. But the cage has to go in first. So we have to mount the cage to this before we do anything. So then the battery will go on top of this in the cage, and then the controller will go on. So we won't probably be able to access these, so we're gonna have to figure out the situation. So let's check that out real quick. All right, now that we got the cover for the stock controller and all that kind of stuff, now let's get the center storage cage bolted up in here. All right, so the cage is installed. We're gonna have to have these 4 bolts holding it. I'm hoping those 4 bolts will hold a battery and the controller. This is a little flimsy on the top when holding the controller, but I think it should be okay. I'm just worried about once we start riding the side-to-side action, since there's really nothing else it's bolted up to. Maybe we can get a couple straps through here to hold on to like the side up here. Maybe even some stuff right here to kind of go through here or something, or maybe right here to here, I don't know, we'll figure it out. But you can see my understanding of what I was talking about, what I was afraid about. So check this out, like right in there, I'll try to zoom in. This comes in contact with the top of the frame. It's already taken some of the paint off. So another thing I could think about doing is just putting nuts at the top. So if you come in here, I am using nuts on the bottom, so maybe we can just switch those, put the nut on top, and then I can get a little wrench holding right there, and then we'll just get an Allen underneath here and just turn it down, and it should stay there. I did notice that we're gonna have to flip the controller the opposite way, because the way the cables are gonna be ran after we zip tie them up to here, we're gonna have them run kind of like right here. They're kind of coming to this cage right here. I will make a little cut, probably in the back so you can't see it. I'll probably make a big like circle right here. The cables will run through here, so then we'll be able to close this whole entire thing. And then these cables will run right to the top of the controller. So if I come to this side, you're gonna see where they're at on this side. So if we just flip it, I think we'll be perfectly fine. We'll run the cables right there, and then the battery will just sit all in the bottom. And after thinking about it, after I saw part 1 and looking at the bike, I don't think we're gonna be able to fit more than 30 amp hours in here. I'm even wondering how much we're gonna be able to fit in here, to be honest with you. I don't need them to be the high quality cells that most of my bikes have, like my Sur-Ron over there or the Super 73. I just need it to be very cheap cells. I only need to push 100 amps on this controller. I'm not gonna push it any more than that. So we don't need anything crazy. So maybe we can go with a high capacity LG cell, something like that. But anyways, that is pretty much the video. That's the end of part 2. So stick around for part 3. I'll contact Powerful Lithium after this video and I'll give them the dimensions of what like battery I need in there. And we'll see if they can make me one. Hopefully they can do it pretty quick and we can start mocking some stuff up. I did order some stuff from Amazon, so I do want to test out to see if it actually works. So what I want to do is hook up like my Zeus battery or something like that. So I ordered the connector for that. So I might do that on my off time just to verify everything's good so we don't run into an issue on part 3 or part 4. But anyways, you guys are the true MVPs for sticking around. Hopefully this is helping you if you want to go 72 volt, and I really appreciate all you guys. Again, thanks for the love and support. Make sure you use the links in the description. I'll have everything listed that you need to buy, plus including the bike if you want to buy that also. It helps my channel a lot. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one. Peace.